Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you're watching another episode of my series where I'm recapping and reviewing every single book in the Animorphs series. Today we are talking about Animorphs 35, The Proposal. If you haven't caught up on the series yet, I will link the playlist there so you can watch them all because I'm not going to be explaining myself all the way through this. This is a Marco book, which is an automatic deduction of 2 points from the book. However, there is a dog on the cover, so I'm going to give it 1 extra point. We open with Marco's video game time with his dad being interrupted by a phone call from his dad's girlfriend, Nora. A serious girlfriend by all accounts, which is nice for Marco's dad, but less nice for Marco, who is aware of some certain things his dad does not know. Mostly the fact that his mum is not dead and has in fact been taken over by a parasitic slug from outer space. As if the yicks aren't enough for me to deal with, this woman my dad has gone all sweet and low for, she just happens to be a teacher at my school. My math teacher, Ms. Robinette. Oh, that's gotta be awkward. I feel like that was a real trend in the 90s/early 2000s media for teens that would involve one of the single parents that a child had dating one of their teachers. That was just a good source of tension. I mean, the other example I can think of is Princess Diaries, but I'm sure there were more. Marco flips through the channels until he gets to Contact Point, which is kind of an advice agony aunt kind of show, except it's an uncle, and people phone in with their problems. I don't know why I kept watching. I'm not a talk show kind of person. Maybe it was because I was hoping William Roger Tennant, the host, would say something to make me feel better. See, there's another complication to my dad's having a girlfriend. A serious one. It's the dead mum thing. It could be a whole host of things, but in this case, it's the dead mum thing. But before we can dig into that, William Roger Tennant, who I'm probably going to be calling William for the rest of this, because that's a long name, he tells a woman that if she's lonely and needs to make friends, she should probably join the Sharing, which, because we know the Sharing is a Yeek cult, probably means this guy is a controller. Let it go, Marco, I told myself. You know how this ends up. All of us screaming and running and maybe this time not making it out alive. Let it go. But of course, he's not quite done with the screaming and running yet, and he calls Jake because they need to make a plan. Marco makes up an excuse to get out of the house, which his dad interprets as Marco not being happy with his new girlfriend, which isn't wrong, but not quite right in this situation. His dad tells him that he thinks about his mum all the time, it's just time for him to move on. Marco says something non-committal and fairly teenagery, but to be fair, he's dealing with a lot right now. As Marco morphs to bird, he fills us, the reader, in on the whole mum not dead thing. We know that already because we are 35 books in, so I'll just skim over that and we'll get on to the plan. However, something goes terribly wrong with Marco's bird morph, and he ends up sort of half osprey, half lobster. We haven't seen the lobster morph in a while, and I'm excited for it. It's an underrated favourite morph for me. Marco manages to get past the terror of this morphing mishap, morphs back to human, or demorphs, as I probably should say, gets on his bike and makes it to Cassie's barn. The others are concerned as to why Marco is so late. If he'd flown there, he would have been much quicker, but in a move that I'm going to call not at all sensible, he opts not to tell them. It must just have been a lack of focus, it's all probably fine. So after some witty banter, they get to the point of why Marco's gathered them there today. They need to deal with William Roger Tennant. Launching a short-term attack on the studio isn't going to work that well, they'll just shift him to another one, so how do they get him off the air permanently? Rachel suggests a major smear campaign. Let's get him cancelled. But to get the dirt that they'll need to do that, they'll need to do some classic Animorphs surveillance. Tobias and Axe can handle the times when the others are at school, and then they'll trade shifts. Cut to 3 days later, the surveillance is going pretty well. Cassie and Marco are keeping an eye on Tennant, and so far no weird morphing mishaps, which is always good. But the fear that it could happen is still lingering. Where are they? Why, they're at William's huge beachfront mansion, of course. Lots of topiaries, big wall covered in ivy, you get the gist. The plan is to keep watching for now, and then tomorrow, Sunday, when no one has any other prior obligations, they're going to go in, because by that point they'll know all of William's habits, they'll be able to sneak in while he's occupied elsewhere. What they've gleaned so far is that William seems to be a stand-up guy, with an awful lot of charitable work under his belt. He seems pretty untouchable, to be honest. This, of course, makes him a perfect recruiter for the Yeeks. As is his routine, William heads out from the house and goes on his regular daily beachfront jog. Maybe he's not really a controller after all, I said. Maybe he's an android. I mean, what kind of human keeps such a strict schedule? I mean, there are androids in this world, but so far they are on the side of good. Marco reflects that he kind of wishes that William weren't a controller because it kind of sucks that such a good guy would be on the wrong side. And Marco himself would quite like to tell William about all of his problems. Of course, Cassie, our resident emotional one, latches on to that and asks Marco how he's feeling about his dad dating his teacher. Marco's pretty bummed about it, especially since her poodle keeps biting him and barking at him, which isn't a nice experience. For 45 minutes we followed William Roger Tennant up the beach and then back up to the compound. For 45 minutes I vented. Cassie may or may not have listened. Every once in a while she said, uh-huh, or bummer. That's rough, buddy. But in all of that, he doesn't manage to mention the quite important news that he messed up a morph yesterday and it could happen again. They watch through Tennant's glass office wall, which is a data protection nightmare, surely. And they see him hanging out with his vast collection of domestic birds. Domesticated birds? Pet birds. So, of course, the Animorphs' plan is to morph into cockatiels and to search the house. Surely nothing will go wrong in such a fragile and defenceless morph. We cut to the next day to confirm the plan is going ahead. The fact that Tennant has so many birds just free roaming around his house makes the Animorphs think that an element of this might be a trap. So the sensible plan is to split up, so if one set of them get caught, the other ones can go in and rescue them. In theory, based on their observations, Tennant is going to be alone all afternoon. However, they don't know what's in the basement. It could be filled with all kinds of Yeerk beasties. Do you have a problem with this plan, Marco? No, I replied quickly. What was I going to do? Tell everyone I suddenly wasn't sure they should be relying on me, that I wasn't sure I could morph in an emergency, just as we were about to go into a very dangerous mission? No! Yes! All of this is happening while Cassie, Marco, Axe and Rachel are in Squirrel Morph, a morph not known for sitting still and planning carefully, more a hyperactive, move-around-do-everything kind of morph. They scamper along the phone line and land at the house. Axe manages to dismantle the alarm using his superior alien powers. How are they going to get through the screen doors? Well, Jake has been holding a little Swiss Army knife in his tiny squirrel hands the whole time. This is a particularly cartoonish book, it has to be said. They're breaking into the library because Tennant never really goes there except at night, and if they broke straight into the aviary, they'd scare the birds, they'd be caught. It makes sense. Once Tennant sits down at his desk, he's usually there all afternoon, Jake went on. We'll just take a buzz around the place and leave without his ever knowing we were here. Do you have to say that? I groaned. Now you've jinxed us. I mean, not one plan has gone to plan in 34 books. I think you should just not be surprised at this point. I think you were jinxed from the off. They demorph and slip from the library into the aviary next door, which of course sets all the birds to squawking. Marco tries to acquire a bird, but gets bitten in the process. Tobias, who is watching from outside, lets them know that Tennant has in fact gone into his office. However, Marco is still having a hard time getting contact with a bird for long enough to acquire its DNA. But finally, he manages it and gets into morph. His morph goes fine, but he and Rachel do waste about 10 minutes trying to get their heads round these bird morphs. My own mind began to get the upper hand of the cockatiels. My own personality pushed through. The bird's joy faded, replaced by another emotion. Fear. Not an improvement. So they fly through the house and they make it to Tennant's office. The man himself is so used to having birds in the house and so absorbed in his work that he doesn't even notice them come in. Rachel lands on Tennant's head. Again, he doesn't seem to mind in order to better read what he's writing. It's a mail merge letter to the president of the TV stations, which is odd. Why is he writing it? The phone rings and Tennant fearfully, as in his hand is shaking, picks up the receiver. They can't hear the voice on the other end. It could be anyone. But then when Tennant says, "Yes, Visser," it becomes fairly clear. In fact, it seems like Tennant is writing this letter at the Visser's request. Marco has begun uncontrollably pulling out his own feathers, having some sort of bird panic attack. Rachel needs him to calm down because she can't actually hear what Visser and Tennant are saying about some sort of Kandrona schedule, but Marco cannot keep his brain in gear, and Tennant has noticed. "Yes, Visser, the president of the network will be at the Solid Citizen Award banquet this weekend. As you know, I will be receiving an award. I fully expect the human to take the occasion to offer me a primetime slot for the coming season." Tennant screams at Marco to shut up, which is revealing that the Yeerk inside Tennant's mind is having to keep up this animal lover image that is not entirely accurate to how the Yeerk is. I'm really sorry, the dog has started snoring. It's pretty precious. A pause, then, "Yes, Visser, the day will come when we exterminate all irrelevant creatures. Looking forward to it." At that, Marco poops on Tennant's desk. I can understand it. He takes it well, threatening to kill Marco as soon as he hangs up the phone, closing the blinds so no one will know he's not in fact an animal lover. Tennant thwacks Marco with a heavy book and starts to press his thumbs into Marco's tiny fragile bird chest. He looked like he was going to explode, erupt like a broken cyst. That's a horrible sentence. But his hands were no longer tightening. Then I got it. The Yeerk was struggling, battling something within the body. Battling William Roger Tennant, the real human named William Roger Tennant. Go on, Tennant, you can do it. The Yeerk, as much as he would love to cause his host that kind of anguish, doesn't kill Marco today. But one day he will. Rachel lets Marco know that the others are coming. They just need a little bit of time to get into battle morph. This allows Tennant a little bit of time to monologue. "I never thought my greatest challenge would be having to be as patient, as kind, as loving as this maundering, mewling, pathetic human. Who would have thought it would be so difficult to keep up this ridiculous charade? Boo-hoo, the Yeerk is a warrior trapped in a nice man's body. baby, boo-hoo. But finally, Tennant lets Marco go. I have an idea, little birdie. If you can tell me your name, I will give you a treat. What is your name, little birdie, he said. Tell William Roger Tennant your name. Uh-oh, apparently that bird can say its name, and Marco does not know it. The others are outside, which they know because they can hear their hoofs and various other battle morph feet, so Marco and Rachel begin to plan a quick getaway. Twigging that this might just be an Andalite bandit situation, Tennant triggers an alarm on his computer. Marco gets thwacked into the carpet beak first and breaks a wing. Rachel tries to distract Tennant by grabbing him by the hair as Marco tries to get up. In a classic Animorphs move, she in fact removes his toupee. Jake tells Rachel she needs to lead Tennant into the hallway where the others are so that Marco can demorph and, you know, not die and also not be revealed to be a human boy. And of course, now 6 Hawkbajir turn up. Were they in the basement the whole time? As Marco focuses on demorphing, they reveal that Tennant has a gun. Yay! Marco, having managed to demorph safely, tries to get to Gorilla, and of course, because of course it does, everything starts to go wrong again. And this time he ends up as half gorilla, half trout. Again, it's been a while since we've had the trout morph. How exciting! Tobias yells at him, "What on earth are you doing?" "I don't know, dude," I yelled, feeling fairly well terrified. "Well, demorph!" Tobias cried. "Get out of that morph, that's not right!" And with Tobias's genius coaching, Marco gets back to human. As Tennant begins to back into the office again, Marco cannot get caught in his human form, so he hides behind a door. Ingenious. As the others back into the room, they shut the door in Tennant's face so he's on the outside, and Marco throws Tennant's laptop through the window, smashing it. Marco, following the others, leaps out of the first story window and hides in some bushes, hoping that Tennant did not spot him. And we cut to the barn later on, where the team are understandably a little bit annoyed that Marco didn't mention this little morphing issue he'd been having. Axe, our resident morphing expert, isn't really sure why this is happening, beyond the fact that to morph you need concentration, and Marco's got a lot going on in his life at the moment. Cassie suggests that Marco talk to a professional, but given that one of the best things you can do in that situation is be brutally honest, and a lot of Marco's honesty would probably come across a little bit more unhinged, maybe that's not the best option for him right now. Cassie, everyone here has problems. Axe is the only member of his species within 1 trillion miles who's not a controller. You're a pacifist who spends half her time battling aliens. Jake is just a dumb jock trying to play General Eisenhower. Rachel is about 3 millimeters away from morphing permanently into the Terminator. And oh, by the way, Tobias is a bird who lives in a tree and eats mice for breakfast. We all have problems. We're not exactly the poster children for Mental Health Week. Would we describe Jake as a jock? Would we? Anyway, the plan didn't work. I mean, they found no dirt on Tennant, beyond the fact that he is an alien slug from outer space, but they can't really reveal that in a meaningful way that'll get him taken off camera. Oh, except for the fact that he wears a hairpiece. Again, probably not going to do everything for them. So now best to just head home and do some homework, and Marco's going to walk rather than morph, which proves the perfect time to think about all that's happening. After all, it's a long shot, but his mum could come home, and then what's going to happen with this whole Ms. Robinette kind of thing? He gets back and sees no lights in the house and a strange car in the driveway. Did Tennant spot him after all? Are the Yicks here to take him away? He opens the door and a clawed beast slams into his stomach, but it is in fact a poodle. Yep, his dad has been having a lovely date with Ms. Robinette, and I'm going to try and pronounce this Euclid? We're going to look it up. Euclid. Thank you. So it turns out that his dad and Ms. Robinette were having a lovely evening in together, and Euclid does not like that they were interrupted. "What are you doing home?" my dad asked sheepishly. "I live here," I answered, pushing the dog away. Oh, his dad is smitten. And anyway, apparently Euclid is very good at sensing stress. Could Marco be stressed? Ooh, goodness, I don't know. Marco heads on upstairs with the dog clamped to his ankle in order to play PlayStation with headphones on. So anyway, on to the plan. They heard about that dinner, they're planning on interrupting it, they're going to expose Tennant as a nasty person who does not in fact like animals and has a real temper. It'll get him taken off the air. Bing, bang, bong, all done. It's been a full week and Marco's been practicing all of his morphs except some of the creepy ones in his bedroom, and so far none of them have gone wrong. Which means that Jake is going to let him be involved again. So this event is happening at that big hotel on the beach that they were at in the David trilogy, where they needed to interrupt all the world leaders. However, since it's not world leaders this time, security's a little bit easier. They go into Seagull Morph and get into an empty room high up via a balcony. They get downstairs to the lower floors, get to the kitchen, morph to cockroach, and crawl along through the kitchen. Rachel seems nervous, which is not good for anyone. If Rachel's scared, you know you should be. So anyway, their plan is to infest some food. In fact, they're going to go into Tennant's food, so when he peels it off, there's cockroaches inside it. Oh no, I hate animals. Take me off the air. They make it to the kitchen, and only then they realise that they have absolutely no idea which salad is going to be Tennant's. But Marco has an idea. He goes into a side room, demorphs back to human, steals the outfit of a busboy, and heads on in. He goes and has a chat with the guy who makes the salads, and says that Tennant really does not want tomatoes on his salad. Can they set him aside one that does not have tomatoes in it? At the same time, sneakily drops all of his cockroach friends into said salad. How's Marco going to get in there? Easy. He'll morph to wolf spider and drop down into the salad from the ceiling. Easy, easy. He just needs to go into that back room again. Of course, the morph then goes wrong, and he is stuck half spider, half skunk, which the kitchen staff see, and of course, want to kill immediately. Marco, how's it going? Jake said. Fine, everything's fine, I cried. I think the rules should be, if your morph goes wrong, you shouldn't get to go on maybe 2 missions. 2 missions just to make sure everything's fine. Marco makes it back into that little offshoot room where the busboy outfit was, and spraying the staff does not seem to have done anything, so instead he opts to use private thought speak in order to speak into their minds without Jake knowing that's what he's doing. I am a talking half skunk, half spider. A skyder. Or possibly a spunk. Oh, no. By demorphing a little bit, Marco manages to freak them out enough to run away. He demorphs again, and he hears them telling someone in the kitchen called Marcel, because of course there is someone called Marcel in the kitchen, that there is a monster in the locker room. Marcel, however, is not having any of this nonsense, which gives Marco enough time to demorph and re-put on his busboy outfit and get out of there. Unfortunately, the salad man spots him and puts him to work emptying a bucket of scraps. When he gets back, of course, the salad has been taken and probably isn't making its way over to William Roger Tennant's table. Did I mention Hanson are there, as in the musicians? And yeah, the cockroach salad has gone to Zach Hanson. Marco grabs Axe and the others run under tables while there's an awful lot of general screaming and running. Okay, Jake replied, that could have gone better. Guess it's time for plan B. Someday, when all this is over, people will ask us about the war against the Yeerks, Tobias said. Let's leave this part out. So, time for plan B, which will surely be a stroke of genius. Axe is in human morph in yet another waiter outfit because that went really well last time and letting Axe into a kitchen will surely have no issues. Marco gets called to empty the scrap bucket again. Meanwhile, the others have morphed to flee and are waiting for someone to pick them up. Axe says of course he can handle such a simple task, but Tobias sums everyone's feelings up with, is anyone else getting that sinking feeling? Marco, of course, has managed to get himself locked in the alley behind the kitchens, while Axe smells some delicious grease. Marco runs, trying to get in through the front of the building. Axe is doing reasonably well as a waiter until Jake instructs him to do as the other waiters are doing and clean the plates. However, Axe doesn't take this as, take the plates away, but clean the plates with your face. Soon it will be time to jump onto the target, Axe reported blandly, as if everything was otherwise perfectly normal. Bless the alien boy, but he does manage to get the fleas onto Tennant, which was his main job. I've now been joined by a small dog. If there's breathing into the microphone or the sound is weird, that's why. I grabbed Axe with both arms, held him back and said, Sir, we're not really busboys, we're just really big fans. Could we have an autograph? And because this is more plausible than children being Andalite bandits, they give him the autograph. I said that really weirdly. Autograph. Marcel, the sneaky chef, is looking for Marco, so he pulls Axe down onto his lap at one of the tables. All while Tennant is called onto the stage to make his speech. We're in position, Jake said. We are under the toupee. Biting has begun. This is a stellar plan. Their plan is to ruin the speechifying for Tennant by biting his head. But he makes it through the whole speech with no incident, and it seems like the plan has not gone to plan. The plan has not worked. Marco makes it home and his dad is out, which is good because Marco needs a little bit of time to get his mind under control. You know what? I told the milk carton, I don't care if William Roger Tennant signs people up for the sharing. If they're that dumb, forget them. Why am I going to get myself killed for them? Come on, Marco. We're 35 books in, those are book 4 kind of feelings. The door goes, and it's Cassie who's come to listen to Marco for a bit, hopefully get that brain cell of his under control. Cassie figured out that Marco messed up another morph in the kitchen, but she hasn't told Jake yet. Rachel has her mum and she talks constantly to her dad, and she has her little sisters and she has me. But Marco, for 2 years after your mum died, or at least everyone thought she was dead, your dad totally fell apart. You were the man of the house. No one was there to take care of you. I take care of myself. Damn it, these books are making me like Marco. Do you remember when he just sucked? Remember when Marco just sucked? Simpler times. They go through all of the, frankly, mad stuff that has happened to Marco during this whole time, even before the Yeerks turned up, and Cassie has to point out that he has to pretend also to be a normal school kid. Cassie rolled her eyes. Look, Marco, don't talk to me if you don't want to. Don't even talk to Jake, even though he is your best friend. If you have to keep everything inside, I guess that's how you are. But you need to at least be honest with yourself. Marco is unconvinced, and I feel like the guy code, which seems to be code for toxic masculinity, is not helping anyone here. Cassie tells him how sometimes when animals come into the clinic having been hurt by humans, she just wants to give up, because as soon as she heals one animal, another one will come in, also having been hurt by humans. But her dad always tells her to deal with what it is, meaning help the animal, that's what's happening right now. Or in your case, Marco, it means that the Yeerks are here. Your mother is Visser 1 and your dad is lonely. None of that should be. But it is. Cut to later, and Marco is being instructed by Tobias to wait for someone to arrive. Marco hears him turn the key in the lock, and smells his anticipation and also his fear. Tobias urges Marco, who I originally thought was in wolf morph, but it turns out is in poodle morph, to stay back in the bushes outside the gate until Tennant comes out. Marco chases after Tennant on his run, easily catching up with him. He was 10 times my size, a 6-foot-tall human against a 1.5-foot long toy poodle. One well-placed kick or punch, and he could have crushed my ribs or skull. But because there are so many witnesses, Tennant can't do any of that. Tennant stopped dead in his tracks. The sudden stop was enough to cause me to lose my grip and send me flying. I landed on my feet and spun back around to face him. "I will kill you, Andalite," Tennant hissed, low enough for no one else to hear. Marco ignores Tennant's threats and instead pulls down his running shorts like a Coppertone ad. Tennant runs back to his mansion and locks himself behind the gates, and this is the beginning of something of a montage of Marco turning up as a poodle wherever Tennant is and harassing him relentlessly. Badgering him relentlessly? I mean, they're not badgers. That would be funny though. Of course he couldn't fight back, couldn't kick me, couldn't slap me, not with so many fans and sponsors and non-controllers watching. All he could do was smile. But Marco can tell through Tennant's scent that he really wants to kick the dog. And honestly, Marco kind of feels like this in itself is payback for all the stuff the Yeeks have put him through. Friday evening and Marco heads home ready to prepare for the final big phase of the plan, but his dad is there wanting to have a talk. You see, well, oh man, I've never been very good with words, but you know I loved your mum very much, Marco. Oh, nuts. Of course, this is the "I loved your mum so much, but I need to move on and I kind of want to marry your teacher" talk, which is especially hard for Marco because he really doesn't want his dad to remarry while his mum is technically still alive. Probably. She did fall off a cliff. But they're not going to get married without Marco saying it's okay, which is very hard for him to do. Fine, so it was on me. Great, typical. Yeah, why not? I'll decide if my dad's happy or not. If my mum is still my mum. I'll decide if she lives or she dies, so that I, the great Marco, the great cold-blooded Marco, can prove how tough I am by leading her into a trap, setting her up. Oh, this whole thing is not good for Marco's mutant morph issue. But the plan has to go ahead and Jake tells us what it is. Axe and I hit the control booth. Marco gets harassment duty as usual. We may only have a few seconds, maybe a minute of airtime before we get shut down. We have to catch on camera William Roger Tennant losing control. Rachel and Cassie will be in the studio as backup, Tobias is outside on lookout, and keeping an eye on the crew's pre-show meeting. Got it? Of course, this is all going to go perfectly well. Let's just finish the book here. Why bother keeping going? So obviously the plan is to expose Tennant attacking the poodle live on camera, because Tennant won't know that the camera's alive, because he always spends a little bit of time alone in the studio before they go on air. I'm going to gloss over a section of the book where they imply that Star Trek is only for boys, because they get to the plan. The studio is dark, only lit by the lava lamps that are part of the set. Cassie, Rachel and Marco are in flies and they land in the dressing room. The girls get to wolf morph and Marco tries to get to poodle. I say tries because of course it goes wrong and he ends up half polar bear, half poodle. I was a Pooh Bear? Ah! It's also not a great combination in terms of instincts either. Marco charges at Tennant and smashes his lava lamp chair to pieces. Ooh, Tennant wailed, cowering like a trapped rat. I felt no pity for him. I didn't know about pity. I was the Pooh Bear. Marco, get a grip, Cassie screamed. You're going to kill him. All somewhat undermined by the whole Pooh Bear thing. The others are panicking. They can't get at Marco without turning into bigger morphs than they're in right now. And they're unable to get through to him. Jake, he's going through some bad stuff in his life, Cassie said. He's stressed. His dad is... Cassie, you know I love you and admire you, but be quiet, Jake said. You listen to me, Marco. We have zero time for your self-pity. I don't care what your problems are. You deal with this right now. If they say guy code again, I'm going to be annoyed. Jake reminds Marco of his life philosophy, as in Marco's life philosophy, that life is either a tragedy or a comedy, and you can cry about it or you can laugh about it. And Luna has decided that she's going to cry about it. Huh? This gets Marco to poodle morph at last. What the? Tennant said, scrambling to his feet. Good job, Marco, Cassie said. Or was it? It was more of a mediocre job at best. Tennant no longer smells like fear, he smells like pure hate, and yes, he is going to chase the poodle. Tennant makes a kind of whip out of an electrical cable, and Marco runs back towards the chair where the cameras are pointing. But timing this is very difficult, and the staff meeting is about to be over. They've got seconds before this plan totally fails. Tennant grabs Marco by the throat and starts to squeeze just as Axe makes the broadcast live. The stage lights come on just as Tennant starts screaming, "Die, Andalite, die!" Some of the staff are clearly controllers who realise this is not in fact just a dog, but an Andalite bandit, and they yell for the live feed to be cut. Cassie and Rachel metaphorically swoop in to get Marco out of there. A man from the studio comes in, sees the madness, and says of course he's not going to be putting Tennant on the air. Success! A plan that sort of mostly worked. Oh. So we cut to 2 weeks ahead and the Animorphs are all attending a wedding. Apparently Tennant has gone to ground after his animal cruelty was aired on TV. And all of that made Marco reflect on what his dad said about making a brand new start. Mostly, I remembered what I've always believed, what my mum taught me, that while some things are just plain awful, most things in life can be seen as either tragic or comic. And it's your choice. Is life a big, long, tiresome slog from sadness to regret to guilt to resentment to self-pity? Or is life weird, outrageous, bizarre, ironic, and just stupid? And he concludes that life is just stupid. It was time to get on with things, so Marco tells his dad, go ahead with the wedding, I'll even be your best man. His dad does ask him to be best man, to clarify. Nora moves in and totally understands that Marco does not want to call her mum. He still hates the dog though. All seems like a happy ending, and then the phone rings, and it's Marco's mum asking after her son. Which apparently they continue in a spin-off book. Dang it, they just want my money. I'm gonna have to read the spin-offs, aren't I? You're not getting reviews of them. You won't take me alive! So, I apologise for the amount of dog breathing that was probably in this video. She's right next to the microphone and I can't work out where else to put her where she won't just cry at me. Dogs are difficult, but she's at least nice and is not harassing me on live television, so that's always good. This isn't live, so it's fine. So that was Animorphs 35. What did we think? Did we have a good time? You can come tell me on my dedicated Animorphs channel on Discord if you would like to chat about that or any other books. That's the place to go. If you're one of my patrons, you are getting this early, not super early because I'm still really bad at pre-filming these, but you are getting it a little bit early. You're welcome. If you haven't already and you're excited about more Animorphs videos, please do subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated, and I like you very much. Thank you so much for watching. That's all from me, and I'll see you in the next one. It's gonna be some bloopers now. Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith, and you're watching another episode of my series. I'm throwing my phone on the floor. We open with Marco's video game time. Ooh, morph back. Man, you having a big stretch? Big stretch. Stop breathing directly into the microphone. Please don't cry into the microphone.